Hey, good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everybody doing this morning? Good morning. This is Connecting to Spirit with Stacy. I'm Evidential Medium Stacy Niedenthal. And like I said, this is Connecting to Spirit with Stacy. Every Tuesday, you and I gather together. Hold on a second. I'm trying to pull this up so I can see comments. But you and I gather together to talk about things like meditation, consciousness, death and dying, mediumship, coming back home after loss. And this is what we are going to be talking about again today. And if there's ever a subject you want to speak about, just private message me or email me at connectingtospiritwithstacy@gmail.com. I will meditate on it and find as much information as possible and give you my thoughts. So if you could let me know that you're here by saying good morning or hello, let me know where you're watching from. If this is the first time you've been on, put a 1 so afterwards I can personally welcome you. But we've got a lot of really great things that we're going to talk about today. So some of the events that are coming up, I'll be in Bel Air, Maryland in November. I should have the dates, but I think there's only one private reading left. You can always check my events column or page on the website or on social media. Hip Gypsy Emporium, there is a gallery reading here in November. I put a teaser ad out there about classes that I'm going to be teaching on Zoom with another fellow medium. I've got a podcast starting this week at Tuesday at 8 p.m. And there's a survey that was sent out through the email, as well as on Connecting to Spirit with Stacy Facebook for next year's retreat. If you could just take a few minutes and fill the survey out, I'd like to have all the information by like the end of the month so I can start planning next year's survey. So good morning. How is everybody this October 29th, 2024? It's crazy, right? It's the end of October. It's going to be November in a couple days. And then it's going to be Christmas. And then it's going to be spring. And then it's going to be summer. And then we start this circle all over again. So, as you know, my name's Stacy, Evidential Medium, Child of God, Spiritual Healer, with the ability to channel spirit using love and light for my higher good and the higher good of those that God puts in my path. I'm not the medium that says, I see death all around you and you're going to be dead in 10 days. My gift, my prayer is always that God and Spirit and angels bring in the most loving message to help your spirit heal. So when Spirit comes through to me, and Spirit's anyone who has been on this earth and has crossed over, they come in on one side and angels come through on another side. So from time to time, you'll see me looking at one side or another. This is not a reading. This is not a mediumship reading. So you'll probably notice I'll be looking over to the left. This to me is guided through God, through Spirit, through angels to give you my opinions, my experiences on what has happened or what is happening around us in the spiritual realm. We're not going to talk about that other gunk that's out there. Hello, Rising Sun, Maryland. Good morning. Good morning. I can see comments. Awesome. So, I have recently been on high kick mode in reading. And I am definitely a reader. I do quotes, and that's a lot of what Tuesday Talks is usually on, are quotes or things that I have read. But recently, I've been on this kick with reading, and I am a buyer of books. I love to buy books. I love how they look on my bookshelf. I like how I stack them. I'll date them in the front. That lets me know when I've finished reading them. So if I feel drawn to read it again, I know I've already read it once. I put them on the headboard of my bed. These are books that need to be read. These are books that have been read. I'm kind of a book geek when it comes to that. And I committed to myself, or I promised myself a couple months ago. I was at Omega, which I've talked about I think that was April. And I bought a ton of books. And I started reading them immediately. And I thought to myself, I buy all these books and then they go on a shelf and I don't always read them. So I'm going to make this promise to myself that I'm going to read every single day at least 2 chapters. Some days I read 5 chapters, some day I read 1, but I want to read at least 2 chapters of a book a day. And I have learned so many different points of view of what other authors feel and experience and say. And I got to tell you, it's undoubtedly changed my mood and my thought process of the world. To me, it helped me to tune out all the propaganda that's out there right now. What's on the radio, what's on the television, what's on social media, what's in the news, you know what? There's so much propaganda out there that we don't know what to believe or not to believe. And I'm not going to get into any political hoo-ha or anything like that. You make your own decisions. We're all intelligent people. I'm just saying research before and find out what is right and what is wrong within yourself. Oh, there we go. Sorry, my phone moved. So, of course, all the books that I have purchased are around basically one topic, but it's almost like an octopus because there's different tentacles and different subjects under this. So I've bought books on spirit and journeying and energy and the soul and consciousness and different experiences that people have had and different awakenings that they've had. And I just started reading this book. Hold on, I brought it with me. Right? It is The Untethered Soul. Right? It's a journey beyond yourself. And there's a workbook that goes with it as well. Of course, I bought the workbook. And I started leafing through the workbook the other day, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to read the book first, and then I'll go through the workbook. But with this, it's written by Michael A. Singer. Deepak Chopra said about this book, read this book carefully, and you will get a glimpse of eternity. So I'm only a few chapters into this book, and it brought my attention to the voices in my head. You know, it's probably speaking to you right now while I am talking to you or while you're reading the blog. We have all these voices in our head, talking to us all the time. And it's one of those things that we get so used to these voices in our head that we are numb to them and we're dull to them and we don't listen to them anymore. And Michael Singer referenced these voices in your head to roommates that take, they move in to your mind. They move into your spirit and into your energy. And you know how sometimes you have good roommates and bad roommates? Same thing about the voices in your head, the people that are talking to you. And it's you that's talking to you. I don't want to say that you're schizophrenic or anything like that. But we have all of these things that are going on in our head that constantly talk to us. And they go from one subject to another subject. They play both sides of the fence. They'll tell you to do something and then they'll say, no, I wouldn't do that. Well, why did you do that? They give you all this stuff and you think to yourself, or I do anyway, oh my God, quit talking to me. Shut up. Stop it. So when you think about this conversation, it keeps you up at night. Or, because my husband always says when he's thinking about building stuff, he'll say, in here, it's already built. But it'll literally keep him up at night because he thinks about different ways to build whatever he's building. Have you ever had conversations with yourself about a conversation that you're going to have with someone? Or do you say to yourself, I wish I would have said it this way, or why didn't I say it that way? You're constantly having these in your head. And we ignore them because it's just always been that way. We've just always had these voices in our head. We've just always had our, and I'm one that I talk out loud to myself. And I'm forever going, you know what? Oh, you know what I should have done? But I'm verbalizing to hear what's being said in my head. Crazy, huh? But you're there with me as well, because no one can tell me that they don't have conversations within themselves. So he suggested to consciously listen to how you were speaking to yourself. And how we speak to ourselves is based on experiences that we've had. It's best case scenarios, worst case scenarios, crazy adventures, conversations with this person. And you say to yourself, I know exactly how they're going to answer me. So you can have both sides of the conversation. So where's this voice coming from, and why is it talking to me? How is this voice speaking to you? Is it cheering you up, or is it bringing you down? And if you pay attention to how you speak to yourself, it makes a big difference in who you are and how you feel about yourself. You may have self-doubt about something, or, you may think, oh, I should have never said that, or why did I do that? And it's here in your head. And then as soon as you ask that question, immediately there's an answer. And some days the answers are good, and some days the answers are bad. I've literally had full conversations with myself of why I didn't say this or what I should have said. How many can say they get that? They understand that. So, if you start to listen to what you're saying, paying attention, and you practice this, you can actually calm down the voice in your head. You can redirect the thought process. So, how do we redirect the thought process? So if you're thinking to yourself, I'm so stupid, I can't believe that I did this 13 years ago. You redirect yourself by saying, you know what I learned 13 years ago? I shouldn't do this. I'm not that person. You interject your own human voice so that the conscious voice doesn't spiral out of control. I remember one time there was a situation with one of my children, and it was this small little thing. But the conversation that I had in my head spiraled me so far out of control. I remember going upstairs to my husband in his bedroom, sobbing, and like putting my head on his shoulders and just mumbling worst case scenarios of what I thought was going on, of things that I had done wrong. And I remember my husband just kind of patting me on the shoulders, like, I don't know what to do with this, because I usually don't spiral out of control. Now, granted, that was when the depression monster and the anxiety monster had a hold of me. But I was so out of control in my thought process, and it was spiraling out of control so badly that I could not stop it. Everything that was happening was because of this and because of this and because I didn't do this, and I'm such a bad parent. And the actual thing was that one of my grandkids couldn't come over and spend the day with me. Did I think maybe their parent had another plan? Nope. I thought about all the things that I had done wrong to my child in their childhood that made them possibly not want me to hang out with my grandchild. Crazy, right? But that was where the mindset was with me. So some of the chapters in this book, The Untethered Soul, A Journey Beyond Yourself, are titled, and I just want you to think about some of these titles. Who are you? So when you're talking to yourself, how are you talking to yourself? The secrets of your spiritual self. Let go or fail. Removing the inner thorn. Stealing freedom from your soul. Taking down the walls. The path of unconditional happiness. The spiritual path of non-resistance. Contemplating death. And the loving eyes of God. So just thinking about the titles of these chapters in this book, what things came to mind? What was your voice saying to yourself? You know, we've all contemplated, we've all walked through different things. And these are all things that we have discussed at one time or another within our heads. You know, how do I, when I was spiraling out of control about this situation, there was a thorn, an inner thorn that was hurting me, that was spinning me out of control. It was stealing freedom of my soul. It was, and I had to think about how to take down those walls, how to walk past it, how to realize that they simply had other plans, not that I was not important. I made it about me. This brain, this voice within ourselves, a lot of times is ego-based, right? It's not always what is the best case scenario for everyone. What is my growing lesson? It's ego-based. Why me? Why did this happen to me? Why didn't I do this? Oh, you should have done it this way. Oh, it's always ego-based. The inner sanctum of your mind, for some reason, always makes it about me. Instead of stopping the thought process and saying, what's the real solution to this situation? What am I learning to this? So, I want you to pay attention to the way you talk to yourself. I want you to pay attention to these inner voices within your head. And I want you to think about redirecting the conversation, not letting it spiral out of control. Go, whoop, 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 hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. Here's the truth about the situation. Okay? And interject that in there. When you spiral out of control and you pay attention to it, you're also bringing up old wounds that have not been healed. Somewhere you learned that you were not good enough. You have self-doubt at the type of parent that you were or spouse that you are because you've learned this or you've been made to feel this way. So when you can actively listen to how you speak to yourself, you can see the wound that has not healed. Does that make sense? When I spiraled out of control with this one situation, and it just popped into my head, so it wasn't something that I had forethought, I realized that I had made a lot of mistakes as a parent. Work has always been very important to me. I had to, put a roof over my kids' heads and make sure that they could do this, but at what cost? So having conversations now with my kids where I'm saying, I'm so proud of the way that you turned out despite my lack of parenting skills. And they'll come back and say, you were a good mom. And yes, I do feel like I was a good mom, but I also lacked a lot of things in time management, in anger control, in just hugging my kids or spending time really listening to situations. And since then, I feel as if I have made up for that. When my kids need something or need me, they know I'm only a phone call away. I literally will drop anything and go to them, or I'll help them talk through the situation. So I realized that this past wound was self-doubt about my parenting skills, quite possibly because of some of the things that I went through in my childhood. Now, I'm not saying I had a terrible childhood, not saying that at all, but I can say to you, I don't always feel like I was heard or seen. They heard and saw the negative things or the mistakes that I made. But to get that, wow, I'm really proud of you, or way to go, or anything, got it from one parent, not so much the other parent. Okay? So in my awakening a couple years ago where I was not going to have daddy issues, I had to say, despite the way that I felt, look how far I've come. And when my brain starts spiraling out of control, listening to what I'm saying feeling that wound, that unhealed wound, and, showing it love, listening, understanding, but also interjecting my human voice now of experience. But look how far you've come. Look at what you have accomplished. Yes, you have made mistakes, but they were learning lessons. So your fifth step, you make amends with those you feel like you've done wrong. So I want to stretch this a little bit further when you think about the voices in your head and the conversations that you have in your head. Okay? So I did this reading last night. It was a small, intimate group. Sorry, I'm chewing ice. At an awesome store, Kismet Epiphany. Oh, gosh, I always forget. I think it's Fawn Grove, PA. If you have not been, go. Check out our website. Go to our Facebook page. Mary Beth is just unbelievably awesome. So in the reading that I did last night, since it was an intimate reading, I took questions afterwards. And I don't always have time to do that, but I felt the need. So I asked if anybody had any questions. And they asked me how I, got to being a medium and things like that. And the one woman said, I just wish I could hear my loved one's voice. I wish I could talk to them. I wish they would speak to me. So I said to her, have you ever had a conversation in your head after your loved one has passed where you feel them talking to you, like this is this conversation that you're having? And she was like, yeah, but it's not real. I'm like, why isn't it real? They speak to you. Have you ever had a conversation with someone who was here on earth and you say, I knew you were going to say that, because you know them so well? Well, you know what your loved one would say to you. You know it. So it's inviting them in and having this conversation with them. Okay, sorry, I couldn't read my handwriting there. So you have all these voices in your head. Haha, my next book, Voices in Your Head. I've got 2 other books, Vicki, that I'm working on. But that's the voices in your head. I'm actually going to write that down. The voices in your head. However, this book, The Untethered Soul, is already written about that. So here we go. You will learn so much from yourself when you trust your intuitive thought process when you're speaking and having a conversation with the one who has crossed over. Interesting, huh? Very interesting. We all have these experiences where you say, I wish I would have said, I love you one more time. Well, you know what? When you're thinking about that, say, Mom or whoever, I love you. And instinctively, you will hear, I love you too. So is that instinctively, is that the brain, or is that spirit interjecting? I would like to believe this is spirit interjecting. And they're saying this and they're having real conversations with you. I've been struggling with a situation in my life for the past couple months that broke my heart, that really, gosh, I don't want to go into it, but it was kind of like a slap in the face, a wake-up call of something that I had created that was taken. I'll just put it that way. And you all know how important my Uncle Glenn is to me, was to me. And he was the one that I could go to. Not that I can't go to Jeff, my husband, or to my kids. But he was the one that I could go to about anything. and he would show unconditional love to me. But there's a difference between unconditional love and unconditional bad habits. Okay? So I can have unconditional love for someone and not tolerate unconditional bad habits. And my Uncle Glenn would listen intently with what I had to say. And he would either, hit my hand or my face or my knee. And he would just look at me with those eyes and say, "You're my best friend. I love you so much." And while I was going through, and I'm still going through this situation, I can hear him say to me, "You're my best friend. And I love you so much," which lets me know he's hand in hand with me during this situation that I'm going through. Letting me know that I am loved and this too will pass. That I am worthy of respect and love. And unconditionally I can love someone, but I don't have to tolerate their bad habits. Make sense? So in having these conversations with my Uncle Glenn in spirit, my mom in spirit, all these other people, one of my best friends, Deb, in spirit, like I could hear Deb like put me in my place in certain situations. Invite them in. Have these conversations with them. You know what they would say. And the more you practice this, the more you will hear the voice of your loved one. Maybe not audibly, but hear. And then don't humanize it. Don't rationalize it and say, I just miss them so much that I made that conversation up in my head. Instead, stop and say, "Thank you for taking the time to talk with me. I want to talk to you more later." We start to slow the mind down so that we can hear our loved ones have these conversations on the other side. And, it's been since the beginning of time that these voices have been talking to us. We just don't recognize it because it's just always been there. We ignore it. It's just common knowledge that while I'm having a conversation with someone, when you would study in school, right? And the teacher would be talking and all of a sudden you drifted off into something else. You were daydreaming about something else. Your mind, your subconsciousness was taking you somewhere else. Were you dreaming of the future? Were you thinking about something that needed to be done? Right? There's times I have conversations with people and while I'm talking to them, something else is going on in my head. And you've heard me say several times that I have learned to listen, not to listen to answer. So even though someone's posing a problem that they are having, I will put my fingers over my mouth and listen, even though in my head I'm thinking, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. But instead, I need to give them the autonomy to say to them, "Do you need my help? What's the solution?" Because the voices in my head are going brrr, and going off the charts. So if I slow them down and quiet them and listen to who's speaking to me, then later I can have a conversation with myself. Or I can bring spirit into this. I can ask them, how can I help you? Do you need my help with something? And then I can continue to talk about it with my guides, with spirit. Sorry, I feel like a sneeze. Oh, I'm sorry. But since the beginning of time, and there's even a quote by William Shakespeare that says, "This above all, to thine own self be true. It must follow as the day and the night. Thou canst not be false to any man. To yourself be true." What do you truly think of yourself? What are you truly saying to yourself? What are you asking of yourself? What kind of hoops are you making yourself jump through? And why are you not asking Spirit, asking your loved one for help to help you spiral out of control? And then believing and trusting that you've heard the voice of your loved one. Because you know what they would say. They know how you would react. But if you're not true to yourself, if you're not speaking truthfully to yourself, sometimes you have to call yourself out. There's literally times where I tap my head and I'm like, oh my God, stop talking. Stop it. Stop it. Why are you thinking that? And then there's other times where I'm like, yep, didn't think about that. Yep, should have thought about that. You know? Or I will ask my mom, what should I do? What should I say? How do I respond to this? How do I react to this? And I listen because I know how she would respond. I know the advice that she would give me because she was my mom for 50 years. But then I have to say, Mom, are you talking to me? Because she is. Trust it. So after listening and paying attention to what you're consciously saying, what that voice inside your head is saying to you, eventually you can find inner peace. No speaking, no thoughts. It's just quiet. And it may only last a few seconds because when you recognize it, all of a sudden you're going to say, oh, I did it. I can't believe I did it. I'm quiet. Oh, shoot, now I'm not quiet in my mind anymore. Okay? This is all part of the meditation process as well. And when you find that quietness, allow your mind to take you where you need to go. Then invite your guides, your angels, your loved ones, God in to speak with you. And they will. Just get out of your own way. It will help you to awaken to consciousness, to your spirit guides, to your loved ones, to help you find peace within yourself. And I've only read a few chapters of this book. I've read more than 2. I've probably read 4. Because I just started it 2 nights ago. And to be honest, last night I didn't read any books. I didn't read because I had that intimate reading and then drove like almost 2 hours home. And by the time I got home, I was wiped. So I didn't read last night. But I was listening as I was driving. I was listening to different podcasts. And the one podcast is on a grief coach. And I think it's called The Grief Coach. And she was talking about how desperately after her, I think it was after her mom passed. Because there were 2 people talking. One had lost a mother and one had lost a father. But how desperately after the passing of their parent, they wanted to pick their phone up. They caught themselves like reaching for their phone to call them about things. And they instantly went through the grief again because they realized she's not going to be on the other end of the phone. So I say, hello, Mom. Pick up, Mom. Stacy calling Mom. And I get quiet. I visualize her. And she always comes to me in this purple long dress. And it's so weird. And I know the dress. And there's always this slight breeze blowing. So, it's like a chiffon dress. So, the dress is kind of blowing in the wind a little bit. And she just it's almost like she's on this people mover, this escalator. And she comes up to me. And sometimes we're in a garden. Sometimes we're, sitting on a bench. But I have a conversation with her telepathically. I don't see her mouth moving, but I hear her. And I am saying to you, you can have this same experience with practice. The voices in your head could be your loved ones and your guides and God speaking to you. If you listen, if you pay attention. And in paying attention, I learned a little more about myself. I learned a little bit more about how to connect intuitively. And in teaching this to you, it allows you to also connect intuitively. We all have the ability to connect to our consciousness because we hear it every single day. We hear it talking to us. But we also have the ability to change the way our conscious mind speaks to us, to raise us up, to raise our vibration. We can interject wisdom in that. We can call in loved ones. Mom, what are your thoughts on this? Uncle Glenn, what do you think? God, speak to me. So if you turn off the radio and you turn off the media, whether it be social media or the television, but when you turn that off and you tune into what you're saying to yourself, it will make a difference. So, and I had someone on the retreat who just said, so true, since the retreat, my soul feels lighter and things are making more sense and I'm feeling much more clarity. Because we took a moment or two to reconnect with ourselves, with our inner beings. And we get so busy that we forget about that. So you just take a minute. Maybe there's a mirror exercise that you can do, that every time you look in the mirror, you're like, hey, gorgeous, I love you. You're brushing your teeth. It's going to be a great day. The things coming out of your mouth are just going to be positive inflections of the wisdom that's within you. You're like giving yourself a pep talk. You're talking good to yourself. Instead of going, oh, my hair never looks right. Somebody else could wear this exact same outfit and look really good in it. I look like a flop. Oh my God, I can't believe I've got all these things to do. And you lose focus and you spiral out of control. Literally, do I have my list? Yes. Literally, before the retreat, okay? I had to put a big thing on it. Before the retreat, I had so many different projects that I was working on. And I was getting overwhelmed. And I remember my husband walked by my office door. And he's like, what's the matter? And I'm like, I don't even know why I'm doing this retreat. Who do I think I am that I can even do this retreat? How am I going to do this? How am I going to? And he just looked at me. He goes, if you don't know, baby, you're in big trouble. And he just stopped and he said, just be you. Just do the things that need to be done. There are some things that you can't cram into this retreat. So I made list after list after list after list, right, of all these things to do. And it all says to do this week. All right. And then as I did them, I crossed them off. And there are some things that still aren't crossed off. And one of the things that I really wanted to have done before the retreat is I'm working on a deck of oracle cards. And I've been working on this deck, God, I'm going to say 2 years. And I don't want to say finally, and I received the final, that's how I want to say it. I received the final artwork from this awesome artist. I'm going to say a little less than a month away from the retreat. And I was bound and determined to have this oracle deck out, printed, and the girls at the retreat, the women at the retreat, sorry, would be the first ones to have this oracle deck. That was my goal. So as soon as I got it, I started going over what the cards meant and all this. And it was making me so anxious because I don't like to just throw things together. And I thought to myself, you know what? That's one less project that does not necessarily have to be completed before the retreat. There are other things that need to be completed. I will start that 2 weeks after I am back from the retreat. So that means next week I'm going to go into like the final process of that. That's on my agenda for that. But once I wrote the things down on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages of all things that says things to do this week, I looked at that and said, you know what? Let's finish doing up everything that needs to be done for the Only Whisper Away retreat first. And I started packing my bins with all the things. I printed out the liability forms. It was back and forth with Michelle, the person who was handling the travel, sending emails to those that were participating, but up until that point, like I was just like, oh my God, what am I doing? There's something here, there's something here, there's something here. I had shit strewn all over the place. And the voice inside my head was going, it was like a beehive in there or a hornet's nest. Until I was like, let's talk positivity into this retreat. Having this, doing this was downloaded to me when I was on a cruise on a retreat. It did not have to be what that cruise was. It just needed to be a gathering of women, a gathering of humans who wanted to connect in a sacred space and grow and heal. And I feel like that's what it was. So I had to shut that inner voice up in my head. And I even was saying, to Archangel Michael, oh my gosh, I need you to defend this voice that's inside of my head and only let good words come. I had to turn off the commercials. Not only outwardly, but inwardly. And there's something for me, when I make a list, there's something for me to highlight it and check it off. You can see, if I put a check mark beside it, I will later, and you can see there's a check mark beside that, but I later came with a highlighter. And if I do something that's not on my list, I know it sounds weird, I will write it down and check it off. It's a sense of accomplishment. It helps me to focus my brain into what needs to be done without my monkey mind going, why are you doing this? You don't have any right to do this. Who says you can do this? Oh my God. Right? We all do the same thing. Yes, we do the same thing. So it's turning that volume down or saying, oh yeah, watch me. And we worked on a vision board and I have my vision board over here. And behind it is this big stack of books. Because on my list of to-dos are 2 books that I've been writing. And I concentrate on one book, but then I get an idea because then the other brain says, oh, you need to put this. So I literally, and I handwrite and then I type because I have to change it. But I literally will have 2 pads and I'll be writing something. Oh, this will be good for the other book. And I'll write it down over there because I don't want to lose that thought process. And then my mind's like going, oh my God, just concentrate on one thing at a time. Why are you thinking about 2 books? Oh, and then there's this, and then there's another pad or sticky notes. Good grief, I have sticky notes all over the place because when a thought comes in, there's a reason why the thought comes in. Right? Maybe sometimes you have to say, shut up. I don't need to think negatively. I need to be positive about what I'm doing. Okay? So, I want to challenge you to pay attention to the conversations that you're having in your head. Redirect them when they're spiraling out of control. Literally, you can go, stop it. If there's two kids or two people in front of you arguing, break it up, shut up, stop it. Let me hear both sides. When we were at the retreat, when someone would speak or talk about something and then the conversation would get off on somewhere else, or someone would try to speak before that person was finished, I tried very hard to say, hold up, let her finish. Or I would come back and say, we kind of got on a tangent about several conversations. I want to make sure that you were heard and that you were seen. Is there anything else that you would like to comment about what you had first said? All right. So I can do that in a group of people, but I can't frickin' do it with myself. Where I could, I should be able to just say to myself, all right, stop it. Stop it. We're going to finish this one conversation first because I need to be seen. I need to be heard within myself. And then I need a mediator. Who's my mediator? God's my mediator. Consciousness is my mediator. My mom is my mediator. Sometimes I'll have this conversation in my head that's just spiraling out of control. And I can literally see my mom give me the look. And you know the look. Kids that grew up, and I don't know about now, but kids that grew up in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, you did not need to necessarily hear your parent tell you to stop it. You could feel the glare. Looks would say something. Give yourself the glare that says, hold up, hold up. Where are you going with this? You're not listening to yourself. Pray about it. Meditate about it. Write it down. I've found when I write things down, it gets it out of my head. So it stops the chitter chatter in my head. It allows me to see it. Sometimes I want to hold on to those conversations. Other times I take it to the bonfire and I burn them because I no longer want this conversation in my head. And if it comes back up, I will say to myself, I burned that. I gave that back to the universe. That's no longer mine to handle. So I want to challenge you. See, I get off on a little tangent. I want to challenge you to start to pay attention to the voice in your head, to redirect it, and when you're spiraling, and to invite your loved ones in, your guides, and God into the conversation, and notice how your energy changes. Have you ever noticed when COVID was happening and we were locked inside of our houses basically, and we were inundated with all these things and all this fear, and then our head spiraled out of control. 9/11 happens and we're inundated and we're watching the news and we're watching it happen over and over and over again. And there's this fear and this pain and this sadness until you finally realize, I got to turn the television off. I can't keep watching this. I need to turn the news off. I can't keep hearing this. I can't keep feeding this into my energy, because what it does is one thought at a time, it chips away the iceberg that's within you. This proud, wisdom, energetic person. It melts your iceberg and you start to shrink into when you feel like you're not being seen or heard. Not only by the people that are around you, but by yourself as well. So, we're not going to talk about that, Shelby, but yes. It's time to give your thoughts freedom. Get them out of the bondage, I guess, that they're in. This habit trail, this, when you put a hamster on they go round and round and round, and where are they going? And sometimes I feel like they look at you and say, why am I not going anywhere? Oh, sugar. Okay. Why am I not continuing? I don't know if I froze. Hopefully I still have you guys. Okay. There we go. But get off of the habit trail. Get off of that spiraling merry-go-round, that wheel that takes you nowhere. Say to yourself, this is where I've been. I'm not there anymore. Good going. Do I regret some of the things? Yes. I forgive myself. I'm not going to hold myself in prison, in bondage, about past mistakes that I've made. I've learned. And invite Spirit in to show you other things. Make sense? So I want to challenge you to pay attention to what you're thinking about. And you don't have to interject it first. But we get so numb to it that we don't hear it. Have you ever had, and you always have, we have, and if you say you haven't, you're a liar. You're fibbing. When you're talking to somebody, and all of a sudden they say to you, what do you think? And you're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I wasn't listening. And then, how are you not listening? Because you're paying attention. You hear the words coming out of their mouth, but it's not resonating here. It's putting your phone down. It's looking them in the eye. And if you miss something that they said because you wandered off, it's saying, I'm sorry, I missed what you just said. Can you repeat that again? So it is challenging yourself to pay attention to what you're saying within your head. Some of you might go, ooh, oh my God, where did that come from? Then think about where it came from. Well, it probably came from the time when such and such and so said this to me or that to me. And then get to the point where when these voices in your head, when you're having this conversation and you're tearing yourself down, defend yourself. Go, whoop, 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 wait a minute. No. We're not having that. No, I learned from that. I'm stopping that. I'm not doing that anymore. Then you can get to the point where you can say to your loved one, what do you think? What should I do? And listen and get quiet. With time and practice, you will actually get little blurps of silence, of peace within your mind, so that your spiritual path is more clear instead of a hornet's nest buzzing around in your head. You may even notice that you're sleeping better. Because all of a sudden, when you go to bed and your mind starts thinking about a certain song or a certain this, where you can go, you know what? I'll think about that tomorrow. There was something that was like I was talking about the situation that happened to me. I didn't sleep for like 2 nights because all these conversations were going on in my head, and I was miserable about it. And when I went to bed the 3rd night, like I wanted to cry because I wanted to sleep. I'm a sleeper. And I finally just started with like a breathing exercise and connecting with my breath. And when I would breathe, I was like, release. Release. And if I can concentrate on one word for that moment in time, that one word shuts up the words in my head. And when they come, I'm saying release. Let them go. Release. And I slept really well that night. And I felt better the next day. So it is paying attention, redirecting, calling in spirit, calling in your loved ones, your guides, God, consciousness, into these conversations. And pay attention to how your energy changes. I wouldn't tell you to do this if I hadn't done it. I don't work on it myself. And literally the other night I was laying there and I just wanted to envision contact with God where no one spoke. I was just in the presence of. And it took a couple nights. It took a couple conversations where I was like, or I fell asleep the one time. And then all of a sudden, I just felt this warm glow around me. I heard no word. I was just present. But then, of course, my human mind screws it up and says, oh, you did it. Oh, my God. And then it went away. Right? But with practice, you can do this. And it will help you to live the life you love and to love the life you live. It just takes paying attention, redirecting, inviting goodness, love, energy, consciousness in, and acknowledging it. Well, I hope that this Tuesday Talks at 10:30 gave you something to think about, something to have a conversation with in your own head, but made you go, huh, because I know when I read like the first couple of chapters of this Untethered Soul, I always knew, or we all know that, oh my God, I can't stop thinking. But it made me realize to stop for a minute and pay attention. If you're not paying attention to a kid that's beside you going, Mom, 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 they're going to keep doing that until you go, what? What do you want? You're going to make friends with the inner child within yourself. And this conversation that's spiraling out of control, you're going to go, oh my gosh, what do you want? I'm here. I'm listening. I'm paying attention. Paying attention. Redirecting when it's getting spiraling out of control. Inviting. Learning. And finding peace. All right, guys. I am Evidential Medium Stacy Niedenthal. This is Connecting to Spirit with Stacy. I hope you all have a great and wonderful night tonight. You know, look for the podcast link. It's through Bold Brave TV. It'll be streaming live on my YouTube, Connecting to Spirit with Stacy, but it's also on Apple, Spotify, iHeart. But it's under Connecting to Spirit with Stacy. It's going to be cool. All right, guys. Peace out. I love you. You can do it. I'm proud of you. Talk to yourself in a positive way, and I will talk to you next week. All right, guys. Bye-bye.